And the critic's choice is...
I'm Just Ken!
What Ryan Gosling cannot believe here has just confirmed the hidden formula for writing powerful song lyrics. The song that was written by Mark Ronson and Andrew Wyatt for the Barbie movie won Best Song at the 29th Critics' Choice Awards, and it had over 100 million streams on Spotify and over 3 million views on YouTube. I closely studied each lyric line and started to realize something. Mark Ronson and Andrew Wyatt have stumbled across a new way for writing captivating song lyrics that was hiding in plain sight. The song I'm Just Ken is built around a 3-part formula, a songwriting formula that has turned this movie track into an award-winning hit. And it starts with part 1, giving the audience what they want. Now this title might confuse you because songs that include a person's name are most often used to write about them from someone else's point of view. We have a first-person character talk about him or her. The problem? The narrative distance. The art of making the listener identify with the song's main character as if it was them. The easiest way to do this is using direct address to pull the listener as close into the song's world as possible. But the song I'm Just Ken has changed everything. Instead of naming someone the audience might not even know, the audience becomes that person. Mark Ronson and Andrew Wyatt used a few really smart tactics to make this song so relatable to a wide audience. First of all, let's look at the first verse of the song. They've done something great here. Notice how the songwriters gave context to the challenging situation of the song's main character. They started with a powerful problem and showed that the song's main character has been unable to solve that problem. I call this tactic drip-feeding hooks. The songwriters do this in every line of the first verse, making sure they grab the audience's attention by saying something that most listeners can relate to, because they've been there or felt this way too. The songwriters also created a funnel. They started very broadly with a line that mirrors what we all feel at one point or another in our lives, not being the best. Then they established the status quo of the song's main character's situation, their problem, their failed attempts, and how they feel despite having done everything right, leading us down to the real problem, sleeping alone. They narrowed down what specific human need this song will continue to revolve around. As explored by Abraham Maslow, there are 6 human needs that will always speak to people, and one of them is the need for love. The entire second verse is about wanting love. We all want to be loved for who we are. And coming back to narrative distance, they wrote the song in the point of view of first person and introduced that perspective in the first line. They left out the name of Ken because in the beginning it's all about making the song speak to what the listener is going through. The song I'm Just Ken is basically a pendulum, swinging between grabbing the audience's attention and making them relate to the song's main character. A lot of songwriters are neglecting this side of the equation that Wyatt and Ronson have capitalized on. However, these tactics might have helped them solve the problem of making a song relatable that is about a specific person or fictional character. Still, there's another major hurdle the songwriters had to overcome, which brings us to part 2, the interest problem. Songs about a specific person have always struggled to make the audience care for that character to keep them engaged, especially if they don't know that person or don't care for what they are going through. If we cannot root for them, typically we skip the song. But the songwriters solved this in 3 smart ways. Number 1, they use attention-binding phrases to keep the audience on edge, constantly teasing us by increasing the stakes, giving us a reason to keep listening because that person has something to lose if they don't solve their problem. To include the stakes, the songwriters mentioned what that struggle does to Ken's mind and what his life could look like if he fails. The second thing is that the songwriters used the concept of a narrative gap, creating an open question that makes the listener curious. How can that person solve their problem? Will they succeed or fail? Quite interestingly, the songwriters also foreshadow the solution. It's not her who has to start seeing him for who he is, but he has to discover who he is beyond how he looked at himself. But the next tactic makes all the difference. The song itself tells a story. Ronson and Wyatt masterfully used Ken's storyline from the movie to show his transformation. To do that, they follow the 5 key moments to tell a working story. That means the first key moment is in the first verse. He gets rejected. It almost makes him go crazy because he runs out of options for what he can do. The stakes grow higher as he holds on to what he wants, being loved. Then in the second verse, he questions what's wrong with him, only to discover that he is not a dreamer. That moment changes everything for him because it's an important insight. He knows now there's nothing wrong with him. This revelation makes him feel his energy, and he faces a crisis. Will he use that energy to get Barbie? This option bears the chance he might get her one day, but the risk is that he gets rejected again, which will probably break him, and then he dies in his blonde fragility. Or he can use his energy for himself, overcome what kept him stuck, and still he might die alone. He cannot know what will happen. All he can do is make a prediction. And he decides to embrace who he is. He now sees the man behind the tan and knows he is enough just the way he is. And look at this guy's expression. This is probably what we as the audience feel as well, as we understand what Ken has already understood. The great thing is that the songwriters kept the lines so broad that they are universal. We all probably know the one thing we are really good at. And the end of the story is the world can check him out. He's ready. He's moving on. So that's the story inside the song that also closes the narrative gap. So now we have 2 parts of the formula, making the song relatable to the audience and keeping them engaged. But part 3 is where the songwriter's best idea comes into play, the built-in mantra. You see, even Michael Jackson said,
singers, when they sing songs, it's like a mantra. When you repeat a chorus over and over and over. So when a kid hears a song and he starts singing that chorus over and over and over, then you start to hear it in the alpha state into the subconscious mind. So you start to become the song or become what you're saying.
So how did Wyatt and Ronson do this? While the song's chorus does not even carry that important mantra and gets left out at the end of the song. The answer, the big revelation. And the concept is genius. Not only did it give the song an interesting twist to keep the audience further engaged, but it also makes the audience bond completely with Ken, making the song even more relatable. Now, a chorus can be defined as many people singing together. But in I'm Just Ken, the chorus is all about Ken. So the great revelation happens in the song's outro, when they all start singing together, already showing how they all identify with Ken. And this line makes it work, letting the audience know we are all Ken, we are all who we are, nobody else. They included the line that every person needs to hear and say to themselves. They tied the song together. The payoff is incredible. And the message is in universal agreement, because we can all say that this outcome is far better than getting the girl. Ken has gone through a powerful internal transformation. He becomes his own person. And that's a beautiful takeaway baked into this song, showing people that we are enough just the way we are. And that's why the song has won the Critics' Choice Award. It's that mantra to say, I'm enough, I'm just me, and that's all who I need to be, nobody else.